Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Janet. This is Janet's Corner. It's September 17th, and we're already on class 6. Let's see. Yep, we're on class 6. And last week I was talking about a tonal scale, putting together one of those, and also putting together a grid. Here I have taken a piece of mat board. This is 7 by 8 inches, and then the window is 3 inches by 4 inches, and each grid is marked off at 1 inch. These are nice because you can lay them on your image. Say I pulled a picture from a magazine, and I can lay it over here. Say I only want this area here. And I know from here where his head's gonna set, it's gonna be the second square down in the middle. And with this card that I cut out, I can mark it off on my page and then tick off the 1 inch marks. We made a value scale last week, and I have the students do that once in a while. And also put together one with color, say reds, and then the tone of the red, the intensity of the red. And here with the black and white, I got a black and white picture of some shoes. This week I'm gonna take the shoes, I'm gonna draw them really big. And, wait a minute here. The grid. This is one of the projects we did in class using the grid. I took a picture, gridded it out with a software program. At the time it was a free app that I downloaded. And I gridded it out at 1 inches and then marked off the card. Let's see, cut up the cards at I think 3 times the size of this little block. Gave everybody 1 block from the picture and a piece of paper to enlarge that area. And then we put them all together and we wound up with a phone. And let's see, that's gridding. Enlarging. Here, I took these shoes. This morning, we'll move this over here. Grab some charcoal. In this box. And I have vine charcoal. And I need an eraser. This is newsprint. And on the newsprint, whenever I sketched out my shoes, I decided I wanted to do the shoes. Shoes, they have a lot of personality. You can choose whatever pair of shoes that you want to draw. Better to draw from life, but by taking a picture of them and then drawing it with the photo, it'll flatten your image so that you can measure off proportions. Here, I can crop it out. A mat board, an old mat board that I cut in half. I can crop out however much of this image that I want to reproduce. If I only want to do this area here. And notice that I have a lot of dark tones in there. I don't have any really whites, but it gets really, really dark. And over here what I did with this, I measured the proportions, the whole thing that I'm going to include, both shoes, not just one. And measuring the proportions, I found that from this point to this point, if you line up your pencil across here, no, I don't have a pencil. Oh, I can use my fingers. Right here to here, it's about 6 inches, and then whenever I measure off the height, it's about the same. So these are going to take up an area that's squared off, and this is pretty squared off. Here, you'll see that the height is about the same as the width. and measured off this area. Kind of like, I carved in stone there for a while, and you rough it out first, and then once it's roughed out, go in with the detail. And as you can see, I got this area, height and width, about the same. And I'll notice that the shoes, the shoe on the left, it's about the halfway mark. So the halfway mark, so that I know that one boot will take up half the area. And then from there I can carve into the square. Over here, the boot, the top of the boot comes in from the toe. So then I'm gonna bring it in, and then I'm gonna jog back out for the toe. But I'm gonna rough it in first. Rough in both shapes. I roughed in both shapes. And then as I move along, I will check my proportions. And the smaller areas, I'm checking my proportions, say, the toe, this toe area from the top of the toe to the bottom of the boot, which you can't hardly see the bottom of the boot because it's very, very dark. This area, I'm going to compare it to this area on this boot. And I will find that if I take a pencil, a piece of charcoal will do, a longer piece, here and here, I'll compare it. It's about the same because the shoelace is laying over the top of the boot. And I'm just roughing in the shoelace with straight lines. I can go back in with my curvy lines. And then I'm gonna measure, okay? And this boot's setting a little bit further back than this one. The toe is up higher. You notice I got the toe up here, and then the toe down here is touching this squared off area that I have right here. Now once I get that blocked in, I can go in. Okay, we'll move this image over, this drawing over here. Take this one down. And here, after I got all my shapes blocked in, and then I went in with more fluid lines, meaning that they move across the paper, not geometrically, but at the ankle, where the ankle comes in, where the ankle sets in the boot. The boot will jog out a little bit, and then I'll come back out for the for the toe. And meanwhile, I am swiping in the darks, the darks. I can go in here, swipe in the darks. I don't have to go all the way to the edges of the paper, because once I'm done, I don't have to use all of this paper. Once I mat it, I can cut off a lot of that space that says nothing. And there's your composition. Here, if you want to transfer it to a nice piece of paper, what's nice is that this is already in charcoal, so it's going to transfer to the back of my tracing paper. I'm going to lay my tracing paper on here. I'm just going to rough it out. I don't know if you can see through that pretty good. And as I press down with a pencil or a drawing instrument on the top, that charcoal is going to transfer to the back of this. And then from here, I can take my nice piece of paper. It's very, very white, unlike newsprint. Put this down here. Let's see, right here. And then position whatever I traced off on here, I can position wherever I want on this white piece of paper. If I want my boots over here in this lower left-hand corner, so that up here in the upper left-hand, the boots down here in the lower right, I can come in and draw whatever I want up in the upper left-hand corner. Say add a hat, or put the boots up high and then place your hat down here. Hats and boots, pretty much they come across with that person's personality. Or say a ballerina, the tutu, or I don't think they wear a hat, but the ballet shoes. Your granddaughter's ballet shoes, or your grandfather's hiking boots, old hiking boots. And then from here, I can also put in whatever background I want. I can grab a background from Arizona highways and stick it back here with the rocks. And maybe, let's see, since these are low on the paper, I might want to put the horizon up here. If I decide to put a horizon in, I can put little hills back here. I can put trees, whatever I want to put in the background. As for some images that have a lot of information, this has a lot of information over here. We can break that down and just reproduce a small area. Say if I want to grab the rocks down here in the lower left, I can just block out those and then take these rocks, draw them down here along around the boots. And that'll say something different than putting them in the middle of the desert. You're working with the foreground, which are the boots, and the background, and then creating a middle ground. Your middle ground will be the rocks or whatever you want to place around the boots. The shadow, let's see, the shadow. In this picture, I think they're sitting on a leather case. I'm not too sure. But anyway, with the next exercise that you want to play with, pair of shoes, a hat. A hat is more, I find more spherical. So you play with, not spherical, ellipses, your hat with the type, the ellipses. And then for the cowboy hat, bending it down, and then probably bring the rim up. There you go. And a cowboy hat. Starting out with an ellipse. Okay, we covered enlarging, transferring. Oh, enlarging, yes, with enlarging, this is a nice little tool. Say I want to enlarge these rocks down here. I can just lay this on here, and whatever's in this square, I can make 2 and 3 times bigger. One thing that's very important with the grid, you want to keep them square, because if you have some of the squares that are not squared off more longer than, more wider than they are tall, you're going to get a distortion on your drawing. And your drawing, the same thing, you want to keep your grid the same amount of, let's see, your grid perpendicular and squared off. So if I, and then squared off. And then whatever's in the small square, you'll translate into the large square, making it bigger. That's an easy way of enlarging an image. Next week, I'm going to go over perspective 1-point and 2-point. And what else? Oh, drawing outside objects. such as a fountain, a hydrant, telephone poles going into the distance, making them fall back into the distance, a fence line falling back into the distance, and possibly add a deer or a rabbit, whatever you want, to the landscape. Cityscape, there's landscape, seascapes. And before I go, I found something in a magazine. It's similar to the telephone project that we did in class. Somebody had gridded out photos. Let's see, no photos. Oh, portraits, yeah, portraits. And in each square, they gave each square a different tone. And that makes for a very interesting picture. And over here with the telephone, we had several people in class working on it. The second one that we did, there's one person that took their square home and it has a hole in the picture. So you get finish that up. Anyhow, that's about it for today. Let's see, next week, like I said, perspective, 1 point and 2 point, talking about the foreground, middle ground, background, textures like we did back in week 5. Draw spheres and created a different texture on each sphere. And thank you so much. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everybody here at Los Volcanes Senior Center for having me. And hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.